Hi, everyone. It's Tracy, and welcome back to another episode of A Brighter Future Starts Here, a live weekly show brought to you by the American Society for the Positive Care of Children. And with me today is one of my favorite guests, Dr. Kirnel Daniel Grishby. Just making sure that I got the name right, Dr. Kirnel Daniel Grishby. And we're here to discuss the disconnect in urban schools and retraining parents, teachers, and psychologists. Thank you so much for being with us today, Dr. Grishby.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan, and I became a huge fan ever since I heard you on Clubhouse, and then I visited YouTube and I saw all of your amazing dynamic videos, right? Because when we think of, PhDs, especially in the education industry, forgive me, but I think of a little bit more like buttons up, a little bit more, conventional, by the book, this is the way it is. And all of a sudden, there you are, like part intelligence, part personality in this amazing combination, right?
Yes.
On your videos. Like, tell me a little bit about that, about how you just came to bring this great personality to the information that you deliver.
Well, first of all, thank you for those kind words because it does mean a lot, especially putting myself out on social media because that's something that's new to me. I'm still getting used to it, believe it or not. I didn't really get on social media until last November. So I'm still easing into it. So I appreciate that. My personality in person is very much like what you see in my videos. And in a way, it's easy for me to be myself on camera when I'm alone, but I cannot film with people around. Like, I just can't do it. It makes me so nervous for whatever reason. It's weird. I love talking to people and I like having deep conversations. So that is definitely something I like to bring to the content that I produce online. And I think it was necessary because, like you said, a lot of people are intimidated by psychology, especially in the Black and Brown community. We don't even want to talk about these things, but we have to. We have to have these conversations. And I feel like, in my experience, I can get people who would never think to open up about their feelings, the abstracts, the mushy stuff, by being myself and being more fun and relatable. It works well. And because it naturally is just how I am, I'm like, let me just put that on video. So yes, that's kind of how we got to where we are.
And that's exactly what it feels like. It feels like you're exactly who you are on that video. It feels like you're talking to your best friend, and you to start out in this whimsical kind of way, but then all of a sudden you get to this incredible, insightful points and deliver the information like pow. It's so awesome. Really, true.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So before I get into a few of the heavier questions, I just have to ask you about that flag in the background. Tell me where it's from. It's so interesting. Yeah.
There we go. Yes. So I am West Indian. I was born in Dominica, so a small island in the West Indies. So if you're thinking where Barbados is, a lot of people, that's kind of how I can help them understand where we are geographically. So it's right over there along the line of other islands, and it's very small, but a beautiful place. It's actually the island of 365 rivers. And last week was Independence Day for Dominica. So I was filming a little bit of content or posting some of that content on my social media as well, just to bring awareness because it is so small. And so it's interesting being a school psychologist. I don't often find a lot of them. And being a Dominican, I don't find a lot of Dominicans either, being that I live in Georgia. So I try to represent both aspects of myself as much as I can. So my flag here, it's hanging every day. Like that's who I am. And I love it. So thank you for noticing.
Great. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Here you are. You are a wife. You are a mother of 3. You are a school psychologist and a self-proclaimed lifelong learner. And then you pivot into educational consulting and communication. Yes?
Yes. Yes.
So currently, you are a school psychologist, but you're not exactly inside the school system. Tell us about that.
So I worked in the schools going throughout my doctoral degree. So I went straight through school, like most people say. So I did undergrad. I found out about school psychology my junior year, quickly shifted my whole life around to make sure I could major in psychology, minor in education, applied to one doctoral program that I wanted to go to, kind of put all my eggs in one basket, very stressful time in my life. Got accepted, went straight into my doctoral program, and I got my master's degree along the way, but I'd never had any like work experience going into my program. So it was very apparent to me early on in my graduate experience that I did not want to work in schools. I really didn't want to work for someone. Like I just always wanted, I had an entrepreneurial spirit from very early on. So that was really the biggest thing. I loved working with the students, the teachers, the staff. I really enjoyed the connection and being able to help them develop and see progress. Like that was my thing. So consultation, database decision making, all the terms that we use in my field, I just love doing that stuff. But that's really not what they wanted to pay me for. They wanted me to test, and I don't really like testing. So most school psychologists, we know them as evaluators, and that was like my least favorite part of the career. So that ultimately is why I left the field, as far as in the traditional setting in the school, because I wanted to do more of the consultation, and it just made sense to go into education consulting. So on my way to that journey, I worked in private practice with a pediatric psychologist. She's licensed, and she really mentored me on how to start my business. And I kind of invested my husband and myself in learning a lot more about how to be financially able to start a business, because I'm doing this full time. Like this is where I, put all of my energy and my effort, and it's really paid off for us as a company. But I learned a lot of those lessons along the way and had some really good mentors and people feed into me. And I realized like I don't have to be in a school to be a school psychologist. Like that's why my tagline, if you will, on my Instagram is School Psych Without Borders, because there's no box around what I do. I do it everywhere and I love it. So that's kind of my journey. And I don't honestly see a lot of school psychologists take our talents outside of the schools and still call ourselves school psychologists. I don't think people think you can make the two, kind of work, but it totally works. I think it works. I'm doing it. So, and I love what I do every single day.
Yeah, you're doing it. And you have an earlier video on creating your own career and finding what you love. And you really seem to not only, walk the talk, right? Because you did exactly that. You, with your entrepreneurial spirit, you created that which you wanted to see in the role that you felt would best suit you. But you were also ahead of the curve, weren't you? Because when COVID came along, everyone was without walls, right?
Yeah.
You were really ahead of the curve regarding that.
Yeah. I didn't think about it that way. Like yeah, initially. And I know, so there are some other services we've added to our business since COVID that were specific as a response to everything going on. But as far as putting the main reason why I started my YouTube channel, or kind of established the YouTube channel for the business with the content I was posting, is because I was having the same conversation with multiple people. And I'm like, there's got to be a more efficient way to do this. Like and I consume a good bit of YouTube. I'm more so, I love luxury handbags, and my husband would have a whole heart attack if I bought them all. So I just like look at other people buy them, and it kind of suppresses that feeling inside of me. So I understand. Yeah, for sure. Shopping. For sure. I love a good vicarious shopping. And I realized just in seeing that, it's like, if this one woman who posted a handbag did that for 100 people, like that's a waste of time. But to make one video and then have 100 people watch it, that's efficiency. And it's like, I love efficiency. That I strive for that on a daily basis, especially with all the things that I have going on. So it just made a lot of sense to me, because especially with parenting, I had friends who were having kids or getting married and thinking about children, who wanted to kind of start right, break generational curses, especially again in the Black and brown community, where we don't have those conversations about how to do things differently and how to make, good decisions and good strides early on. So I'm like, let me just film this. And when someone asks me the question, I'll tell them to go watch my video. And it's worked a lot. And so it saved me a lot of time. So those 2-hour conversations, I don't have to have as many of those anymore. And if I do, then it's coming with an invoice for sure.
That's great. So you're not posting about handbags, but you're posting the content that your target audiences are consistently asking you about.
Yes, for sure. And that's needed, because it's just, when I went and looked for video content similar to what I was posting, I couldn't find anything, kind of in that realm, at least not in the way that I delivered it. And so I wanted to, I like to fix problems that I have in the world. And I feel like a lot of other women, moms, professionals can also benefit from that as well.
Absolutely. So take us back. You make this pivot, you step outside of the school system, yet reach back into the school system, so that now you're working with teachers and
Mhm.
parents and school psychologists, what did you notice?
So I felt as though I could be a lot more honest with them because I do recall being almost like, what's the word? Almost like a muzzled in the schools. I would see things and it's like, well, I can't really say it the way I want to say it. So I'm going to have you read between the lines for the sake of the
Yeah.
school not being legally obligated to do what it is I'm going to say to do. And that's annoying. Not only is it annoying, but it's inefficient, again, which is against everything I believe in. And it doesn't really help the children, the families, the teachers when they need different services. So I just felt like I could be more honest with them and I could do things in a way that made sense because in working in school psychology, I'm observing a lot of what I'm seeing in the schools and seeing the gaps, like because we work from almost like an outsider looking in when it comes to the classroom. So it just was very freeing. I could do things that I felt was the best use of my time. I didn't have to fill in or I didn't have to find time to do things I enjoyed and have my time be used up with things I did not enjoy anymore. And so that's been, I think, the most beneficial part is that I can kind of niche myself as an expert, especially in the consultation piece, in finding evidence-based and research-based interventions for teachers because they need answers and solutions. And now that I'm online doing it and having that accessible to parents, I think is helpful because now parents and teachers have the same information, so they can more likely be on the same page. And to me, that's really important. So I'm very, very happy to do it this way for now.
Yeah. And kudos to you for finding that route. Dr. Grishby, I think that I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we're having you on the show because November is National Inspirational Role Models Month. And you serve an audience of teachers and school psychologists who serve those with special needs and
Mm-hmm.
those who are working in urban schools, and you're essentially a role model for them. So
Yes.
tell us how you're a role model for them. Tell us the support and the training that you
Mm-hmm.
provide.
Yeah. So when I was in grad school, I didn't see a lot of school psychs that looked like me at all. It was maybe two. I had two students in my program that were two years ahead of me that I looked to a lot for guidance, and I realized that even in my courses, I didn't see it the same as some of my other classmates. I guess I more so wanted to challenge things more as far as the system because I'm a systems level thinker. So it makes more sense to me to do something at the top where it trickles down to everyone else versus trying to chip away at every individual at the bottom. It's just, again, it's not efficient, and I like efficiency. So I was really passionate about that. And I realized when you talk about systems level change, you're talking about, chain of command, people in power, and they often aren't women and they often don't look like me. So I wanted to address both of those things. And I think the first step was making sure that people knew, one, that I exist, which is part of me getting on social media, and being more open because I'm naturally a very private person. So being more open about what I do, what I experience, what I enjoy as it relates to school psychology, and also the ways that I feel we can help and support people. And I think from a role model standpoint, just what I've received, at least from my clubhouse rooms that I do and host, conversations I've had with school psychs all over the country that I've met on social media since I've started this journey, is that they just needed someone to say it. They just needed someone to help them believe that they should challenge the system, like that's still a thing, that it's still relevant to do that. I mean, it's still possible to incite some type of change, even if it's not, a huge change right away. I always tell people, be a ripple in the pond. That's what they told us in grad school when I was at Georgia State. It's a ripple in the pond, and that still can start a movement, and that's important. But there's so many of us that I've connected with, urban school psychologists and school psychs of color, who want to address the needs in the school system, especially for our Black and brown babies, but they just needed the support. They need someone else to be, to back them up, so you can have that support to go ahead and make those changes. So it's a lot of, I have a lot of gratitude that people listen to me,
Yeah.
but I also know that I'm a relatively persuasive person. I'm pretty good at that, especially if I need to get a store discount. Like, I'm really good at those too.
Oh, that's good.
So yeah, I spread it all across. I use it as much as I can.
Luxury handbags and the store discount. Okay,
Yeah,
we'll talk.
I need the discounts for the handbags too. That would be great. It's important that people,
Yeah.
and I think that's one thing that school psychology it's so critical, because it's important that you can get people to listen to you. and do what it is that you feel is best, because we're in this position, especially when you're in the schools, where you kind of have your hands in everything if you choose to do so. And so that the impact that you can have is really great. You just have to know how to use it and maximize that experience. And so although I'm not in the schools, I feel like I still have that capacity, and it excites me so much so. So I enjoy it.
You know, I just got the visual of the Emperor's New Clothes, where there's a
Mhm.
crowd, they're all thinking the same thing, but it just takes that
Yes.
one fearless voice to say it out loud and ignite something. And
Yeah,
in this
that's
case,
me.
it was you.
Yeah,
In this
I
case,
would
it was
definitely be the one to say something for sure. And I mean, there's good and bad to that,
you.
because sometimes you can feel frustrated when things don't change immediately. And recognition is also progress. I will say that. There sometimes we and when I say we, I mean me. Sometimes I get impatient with the change, because it's like, okay, we've identified the issue now. Let's go ahead and start moving forward, right? I'm not necessarily rushing to the destination, if you will, but I am wanting to keep the momentum of the change and the
Mm.
progress. And that is something that requires other people to, again, be on the same page with you, be able to trust and receive what you're saying, because that's part of why they're going to move in the way that you want them to move. That's the persuasive part. But, you can't control other people. The psychologist in me knows this. I can only control myself. I can influence other people. And
Yes.
so that's what I try to use my platform now to do, to kind of let people know what school psychology is, let people know about urban school psychology in particular, because it's a different ball game in the field even. And school psychology is a relatively new field compared to other branches of schools of psychology in general. So there's a lot that we're learning about it, but schools are changing. The field is not. And it's important that we are intentional, I guess, about putting good people in positions to where they can help these children and families, the children and families that we serve in urban schools.
Absolutely. So there is this growing underlying consensus about change that needs to be made in the urban schools. Can you talk to us a little bit about the challenges that you find in the urban schools?
Oh, yes, absolutely. There is so much research. If there's any research out there in urban education, it's about the challenges. So we all know what those issues are. So the schools are overcrowded. There's high rates of turnover, high rates of high school dropouts. As soon as a child is 16 and they know they can stop going to school, it's not compulsory anymore, they stop going, because school has been hard for 12 years of their life, right? So they can't wait to leave. There's difficulties with discipline. There's disproportionality in special education identification of children. The system is not always representative of the students that are in the classroom. The textbooks, there's not a culturally responsive and relevant pedagogy that's being implemented. So all these issues have been well researched. It's shocking to me that it's still the same. Like in some cases, there's been very little change, but in some ways, there's been great change. And I think social media is very impactful in that. The influence that social media has been very helpful for urban education, the reform that is being required and requested, because people are being able to communicate now. Like they can say, oh, you're having this problem in California, I'm having this problem in Georgia. Like, let's
Yeah.
join forces. Or what are you guys doing? What's working over there? And I think before, maybe not having social media, it was harder to believe that things were changing and things were happening. But a lot of the issues, like I said, they're still very, very much present in the urban education sector. But people are trying the best that they can, and I think again having these conversations and putting this information out there is really helpful.
Absolutely. And talking about people trying the best that they can, let's talk about how professionals are equipped. Can
Mhm.
we, for a
Oh,
moment?
absolutely.
So you're in grad school, your peers, other professionals, they're in grad school, they're learning
Hmm.
one type of psychology, they're learning what the needs are out there. However, in practice, there may be a whole other mindset or a whole other situation going on. Like, what is the reality of the situation?
So I'm so glad you brought this up. My dissertation topic before I settled on my actual title was from theory to application, basically the disconnect between what we're learning in graduate school and what we're seeing in school. So, like I said, I did not have experience working in education prior to starting my doctoral degree, not formally, anyways. I did mentoring in high schools. in undergrad. And that was really a part of what kind of started this need for searching for a field like school psychology, because I saw the issues there, even as a student, a college student working with high schoolers, and seeing how difficult it was to get these students the services that they needed. So when you think of getting into a graduate degree, we're reading textbooks and journal articles that take 2 and 3 years to publish. Things are changing constantly. So by the time we get the content, and a lot of times they're holy grail articles. So it's things that, every school psychology student needs to read this article from 1972. Okay, well, in some cases, schools are very much similar, especially when it comes to some of the inequities that we see. But on the other end, kids are changing. Like, student learners are different now. And I think that's where the application piece can be difficult, because we have all the steps, right? So everything's listed out. We know what to do. It's just it's not feasible when you're working in certain schools where there are other kind of gaps, if you will. There are other holes that kind of stop that process from being so seamless. And so one example is we have like an 8-step consultation that I was trained on in graduate school. So it's like you go through all these steps, from identifying the problem to a solution-based approach for consultation, for behavior, for academic need. But that takes time. And then when you get into the schools and you're, a bright-eyed school psych intern, if you will, or a first-year school psychologist, after you've gone through graduate school with the sheltered, perspective, you're trying to get teachers to do 8-step consultation. They don't have time for that. They don't want to do it. So it's, I'm trying to catch a teacher in the hallway on their way to the bathroom, the only bathroom break they're going to have all day. They don't want to spend those 3 minutes with me. Like, they don't really have the desire to have those conversations at that time. So it doesn't apply. And so sometimes you don't see the results that we want because we feel like we're not implementing the process we were taught in theory. What I find is most effective is actually adapting that theory so that it makes sense for your building. And every school is different. Honestly, every teacher is different. Like, I'm able to do 8-step consultation with some teachers who may have a different experience, a better handle on things, or whatever the case may be. But with some of them, I'm only doing 3 of those steps, but we could honestly still get the same outcome. It's just, you have to be able to adapt. And I think that's a soft skill that you really can't teach someone in graduate school, how to be adaptable, how to think critically and think on your feet and be able to make things happen. Like, you have to be able to use those skills at all times, while also still knowing the theory, while also still knowing the content that is being taught in graduate school. So a lot of times it takes time. And I think great supervision is necessary for that to happen. I had 3 different supervisors, and I had 3 different experiences with each of them. Thankfully, 2 of the 3 showed me how to do this job really well and really kept me interested in completing my doctoral degree. My first experience was different, and I think I learned a lot from it, but it did help me understand in hindsight now why we have some of the gaps in practice, because everyone is not always equipped to do the job well.
Wow, wow, wow. I love how you're actually working in the field that your thesis was in.
Mm-hmm. Very
right?
much
Like,
so.
you're actually working in that gap, and you're bridging.
Yeah. It's really, I fought hard for my topic for my dissertation. I remember it was my second year in my program, sitting in my advisor's office and telling him the title that I shared, From Theory to Application. And he was like, I like that, but it's more steps than just having a good topic. Like, you have to really make it a thing. You have to manifest that and put the work in. So a lot of graduate students, and this is just a side note tip for any grad students watching, regardless of whatever study you're in, it doesn't even have to be psychology at all. But if you have a master's thesis, if you have a dissertation that you have to write, it's a big project, right? It's a large commitment of your time. The way that my advisor described it is that you're going to be an expert in one thing, and you do something, in my opinion, do something that you enjoy, something that you would like to continue. And so if you're getting a doctorate, more than likely you're going maybe the academic route, or you're going in private practice. When it comes to when it comes to psychology in particular, I kind of did both, but neither at the same time. It's weird. And I like my ambiguous place that I'm floating in right now. But I told myself, I want to do research that I care about. I want to do research that reflects myself. And I went to urban schools. I was that kid that needed those services. I immigrated with my parents. My mom and dad both worked several jobs. They weren't the parents that were able to come to all the meetings. They weren't the ones that were able to pick me up from activities. So I couldn't do a lot of things unless I had great teachers who would take me home. Honestly, that was a lot of my, especially in elementary school. Oh my goodness. When I got older, I would walk home. But when I was younger, I needed people who were committed to doing urban work well so that I could get the resources I needed to be able to pour back into the community. And so seeing that happen, it really fuels my passion for making sure that good people are doing this work. Good people are prepared to do this work. Because you can get burnt out when you have the passion, but not the preparation. And that's a whole nother conversation. But
right, yeah, passion and preparation collide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need both. Because you'll get tired. But if you know how to do it, even on your worst days, you will still perform. But if you don't have the preparation, you have nothing to give on those days when you're burnt out. So I just try to make sure that I'm living out this project that I took so much time away from my family. I have 3 children. I was pregnant with my 3rd child, 9 months pregnant when I defended my dissertation. So, all of them went through this journey with me, and my husband's, I had to put a desk in my closet to wake up every morning at 4:57 for like 4 months straight to get everything done to graduate. Because I was like, I'm tired of being in school. I want to get out and, just do this stuff. So now I'm out and I'm doing the stuff and I love it.
Doing it. Tell us how you support the teachers, the psychologists, the parents. I feel like you're the quarterback whose role it is, or whose self-proclaimed role it is, to get everybody on the same page. How far off am I?
No, I actually think that's a very good analogy, if you will. I think that makes perfect sense, because it's like everyone has their positions that they play when it comes to, especially in special education, right? The school psychologist is looked at as the expert because we're the ones that do the evaluation. No one else can evaluate students in the school in the capacity to be eligible for special education services. So there's a lot of weight put on our reports and our evaluations. And with that, we know what we need to make a good case for a child. And in a lot of cases, it's everyone does their part, but we have to put it together. So I think that quarterback mindset, the vanity in me is like, yeah, I'll be the quarterback because they get all the attention. Why not, right? But they also have a lot of pressure. So if the team sucks, they usually look at the quarterback, right? So I'm the type of person that can accept all my wins and all of my losses. I actually played sports my whole life. So that mindset is very familiar to me. And I think that being an athlete is also helpful because you work as a team in the schools when you're school psych. So being a leader, but also being able to convince people and persuade people to do what needs to be done for the common goal. Like, you learn that a lot in athletics. So I definitely used a lot of those skills, right? So it was good years, a good investment, if you will. And again, those soft skills that really make the job a lot easier, if you will, if you're prepared in that way. But yes, we are the quarterback. I'll be that every day because someone has to do it. And I don't mind taking that on.
Someone's got to do the job. But now that you gave us insight into the fact that you played sports, now everything makes even more sense, because you've got the competitive drive and you've got the let's let everyone win drive.
Yes.
It's a compete, but it's a compete for the whole. Let's win together. Let's rise together. Let's do this together.
Absolutely.
And that makes sense also why, when you said, this is the voice of dissension, this is what could be, and everybody listened, like, oh, she's speaking it, she's saying it out loud, now we can all get on board. Right. So the story unfolds and it really makes sense.
Yes, for sure. And I do feel personally that the success of a school psychologist should be, in some ways, not always, because again, we can't control other people, but I do feel in some ways it should be measured by the progress made in your schools, right? Because a lot of times, again, school psychs are known for completing assessments. And so if we're ranking effectiveness by the number of assessments you've completed, you could have the most assessments and your school has the lowest scores in the county or in the district, in the state, in the country, whatever the case may be. To me, that's not effective. Like, that's not helping the students. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see
Yes.
student engagement increase. I want to see mental health in your teachers improving. I want to see more comprehensive and cohesiveness in the administration. Like, those things I feel we have a lot of influence on. And if we're able to know, again, if we are prepared on how to actually use our skills and our training to see that type of, or influence that type of change in our buildings, like schools would be, oh my goodness, they'd be 10 times better. You
Mhm.
know, they would be so much better. And again, we can't do everything, but I do feel a lot of school psychs they don't give themselves enough credit for what our position of power really is. And I was definitely one of those that I know my strengths. I feel like through life, just with all of my experiences, I've learned myself pretty well at this point. And I change every day. So I keep that in mind. But I know my strengths well enough to also know where to focus my energy and my efforts in the schools. And the areas that I feel like I really put the commitment behind, the discipline and the consistency behind, I saw progress in those areas in my schools. And so, and it was not just testing. Like, I got my cases done as well as needed, but there's so many other areas where we can develop our schools. And I think that that's something that I want, especially in the urban sector. I want more school psychs to be confident in doing that. Like, go after that. You know, if you want to be a part of the beta club, if you want to be a part of the volleyball team, if you want to, you know, do a mental health day for teachers, if you want, whatever the case may be, like, just do it. You know, like, don't hide behind the report writing. Like, just get out there and make a difference. You know, make a difference. So
Make a difference. So I'm just going to reset the room for a minute, to use a
yeah.
clubhouse term. So we're here with Dr. Kirnel Daniel Grishby, and we're talking about the disconnect in urban schools and retraining parents, teachers, and psychologists. And we're talking about this whole concept of, being the voice, um, identifying the gaps
Mm-hmm.
that we're currently noticing in the urban schools and being that change agent, right? We're talking about how psychologists have more power within the schools than they even realize they do. So, what I'm curious about are some of the ways specifically that you empower teachers and psychologists and parents.
Oh, for sure. So one of the main things I do, again, is I try to get everyone the same information. I think that there's so many secrets. Like, there's so many secrets in
Mm,
schools. So teachers know this, but then admin doesn't know that. And then parents know this, but then, it's just like
yeah.
everyone is off in their own realm of understanding, but it doesn't align. And so it makes sense why there's dysfunction and there's not progress. So my goal is I want everyone to have access to the same information, and you, from your, zone of proximal development, basically using my psych terms here. So based on wherever you are, I meet you where you are with that content, and we kind of all kind of move forward together in that way, in progressing to a better understanding. And this is not to say that the school psych and the teacher and the parent all need to understand the same concept at the same level, but it's just so that you can be an active participant. And so things aren't so intimidating. And I do find that a lot of times when we talk about a lack of engagement, it's either because someone's not interested or it's too difficult and they don't understand it. And I do see that a lot in school. So my goal is to make information accessible in a way to parents, teachers, and educators, because we're all in the same fight together, this urban fight together, right? So if we're all working with the same student, it'd be helpful that we have tools similar to help those students progress. So that's definitely one area where I focus my efforts. And I was going to say, the thought escaped me,
Let
but
me ask
that's definitely one. Yes, we'll go there.
you. So I feel like what you're talking about is transparency and
Mhm.
understandability. So the one
Yes.
area is transparency where everybody has access to the information, because
Mhm.
transparency is really about access. And understandability is translating that information to different levels of understanding. Is that what we're
Mhm.
talking about here?
Yes, I think that summarizes it well. Absolutely.
Beautiful. So I guess some of the basic steps, or even let's bring it back, reel it back one step further. If you were going to give parents
Hmm.
advice on engaging, getting involved, understanding, having access to information, what is the advice that you would give to someone listening to our show today who's a parent?
So if you're a parent listening and you want ways to engage more, that's the question, right? And start that process, I think one of the first things that has to happen is we need to self-reflect on our own educational experience and realize or disseminate what that was like. So did you have a positive experience in schools? What I often found is that parents who had positive experiences were engaging because school is not scary. School is not intimidating to them, right? When we think about a lack of parental engagement, it's often in communities where there's a higher level of parents who are not literate, parents who probably were in special education themselves in a time where special ed was not really addressing the needs appropriately. So they have a very negative experience towards school. Something that I did see is that teachers did not investigate that. So they didn't know who they were speaking to. So when you talk about from a social media platform, reaching out to your audience or understanding your audience, a lot of educators don't understand their audience, and schools in general, even from an administration standpoint. So they're shoving home all these pamphlets and these worksheets that parents are not willing or able to really even receive that. They can't digest that information. So it's just kind of falling on deaf ears, essentially. And so I would say for parents who want to get engaged, first off, kind of decide and identify what is your relationship with education, what is your relationship with learning, and your own personal experience. And then from there, I think you may have a clearer path to move forward with reaching out to teachers. And I think a lot of times teachers want parents to reach out to them first, because they're so busy, just trying to keep kids alive and teach them at the same time and deal with all the things that are being put on them, all the accountability work from the role. But there are ways that I think it could be more fun, so that both sides feel, I think, a lot less intimidated. So now that my kids are school age, I've seen teachers make efforts to send home like get to know me type of projects. So it's like you kind of put the poster board together, you put the family picture, like, do you have pets?
Sure.
Where do you guys like to go on trips? What do you like to do on the weekends? I think that is a good way to kind of like break the ice, if you will. Now that Zoom and online meetings are a lot more what's the word?
Prevalent, sure.
Yes, they're definitely more prevalent, but they're also more acceptable. That's it.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't seem like a cop out anymore, because a lot of times parents they didn't want to come, either one, because they couldn't come, like it didn't make sense for them to come, or they were intimidated. They didn't want to, they weren't interested. So I think now that it's more accessible, it's easier to get on a call with a parent. A teacher could, hop on the phone really quickly and do a video call and just say, I just want to put a face to the name. I want to see the nonverbals. And on both ends, I feel like that's a good place to start. So even like just little meetings, reaching out. And of course, teachers always need resources. So if you want to kind of, make a good impression, bring them something nice, I love a good confection, a little cupcake, a little muffin. Something to that effect. But yeah, I do feel that like anything in life, in order for us to move forward, we need to address the history. And so that self-reflection piece would be key. And also seeing how does that impact or influence your child's experience in school as well, based on your own personal experience.
Right. And that makes so much sense to me. And just a quick aside, while you were speaking, I had this light bulb moment where I started thinking back to my childhood. And I had my mom and I had my stepmom. My mom, you're going to do your homework. You're not going to miss a day. If you're going to miss a day of school, you better have 103, right? Just very diehard, very conservative when it comes to school. My stepmom was allowing her kids to stay home from school randomly. Education didn't mean quite as much. And I always saw it. I always noticed it. But just now I never realized it's really a parental mindset where it all trickles down from there.
Yeah.
And it's really just the luck of the draw as well. Partially the luck of the draw. Of course, there's, other things like attention span and dyslexia and other sensory elements that factor in.
Right.
However, really, it comes from the parental mindset about education, and then, like you said, the role models that you've had in your life, the empowered or disempowered psychologists that you've come across in your life.
For sure.
Well, all of that combines like a river melting in, flowing in to help shape our children, to help shape the future of our children. So it's just so important to look at it the way you do, holistically, and I totally applaud that. Now, as one of my last questions, I want to ask you something you had told me about consolidating resources. Can you tell us a little bit about this whole concept of consolidating resources?
So from the educator perspective, because I know we had a conversation. Okay,
Exactly.
so yes, I do feel that teachers are extremely overwhelmed. Again, I'm married to an educator. So my husband's been teaching high school math for 13 years. I believe this is his 13th year. And he's extremely passionate about math. He loves numbers and he loves teaching, and he doesn't get to teach as much as he would like because of all the other things that they have to do. Every time he comes home, he's like, oh, today they told us to do this and now we got to add this. And it's getting further and further away from the actual thing that they went to school for to do. So I found that efficiency, again, hello, that's like my word, right?
Yeah.
Let's count how many times I've said efficiency in this call.
It's a good word.
For teachers, it's so important because they just don't have enough time in the day. And especially when you have the littles, that's like elementary, pre-K, it's so much more important then. But if you want someone to do something, right, make it easy for them. That's kind of like my mindset. If it's too hard, even if they don't mind, it just doesn't make sense. It's not feasible. So I think consolidating content for urban educators in particular is one thing that I'm very passionate about doing, because I know when I worked in the schools, I may want to create, let's say, like a behavior chart, right? And I have an African-American third grade boy that I want to do this chart for. When I go on Pinterest, I have to search 7, 8, 9, 10 pages to find a behavior chart template with a little picture of a black boy on it. And it's like, that's unacceptable. One, it's inefficient. So now we're going to get a plain one. And you would be surprised how much of an impact it would mean for that child to see some representation of themselves on something that's motivating them to be their best self. So those types of things I think are really important. And more individuals are getting into that. I've been seeing more resources, because it's just, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of attention has been brought to the need for positive representation, more so than I think in the past few decades. So it's good, it's happening, but I just know in general, and this is for any educator, whether you are, regardless of your background, your nationality, your location, you just don't want to waste time doing things and reinventing the wheel when you have so many other things to do that have to get done. So if it's not a requirement, I feel it won't happen because they just don't have the time. So just make it easy, make it accessible. And as school psychologists, we do have a lot of autonomy with our schedule, and we have more flexibility than teachers do. They're kind of confined to their classroom, and we don't have necessarily those types of limits. So I like to use that, again, that position of power to do things to make their jobs easier. Because if we want teachers to give things to their students, we have to give it to the teachers, right? And I think they can't give what they don't have. So I try to make their job easier so that they can go in and do the real hard work, which is keeping all the kids on the path of awesomeness, which is a lot. But so many teachers do it so well. So I just want to help them do it even better.
Yeah. So what do you want parents, teachers, and psychologists to know?
Oh my gosh. I want them to know that they're doing the best that they can. We can all do better, but in order for us to do better, we have to know more, and not to be afraid of recognizing when you actually need more help and being open to that. That's totally fine. It's absolutely necessary. So, and people want to help, right? So people actually want to help. And in a lot of cases, I found that we all want the same thing. We just don't know how to communicate that to each other, and it stops the progress. So let's just go in with the mindset that we all want the same thing and see what happens.
We all want the same thing. Just reach out for support, be open to learning, be open to asking for the support and finding the resources, or finding where to find the resources.
Yes, for sure. In a consolidated place, working on it.
So working on it. Our listeners are anything like me, they're going to want more of you. So where can they find you?
So several platforms. So our company's website, again, Reach AKG Education Consultants LLC. Our website is www.reachakg.org. So they can definitely get content there. They can see our services that we offer. A lot of them are virtual as well with COVID. So that's tutoring, life enrichment, which is our mix of life coaching and therapy for young adults, middle, high school age kids. I tend to do a lot in that age and helping them kind of prepare for the next phase. I also work with elementary, so we see all the kiddos. As well as just the different services that we offer with individuals with disabilities. So we just want to be a resource and support. They can also go to our YouTube channel. So if they search our channel name, which is Reach AKG, then they'll find the content that we're filming, which is a lot of it is on evidence-based interventions, tips and strategies to help the home environment, the classroom environment be healthier so that students and parents and adults, teachers in general, can feel more successful. So we're just happy to share all that information.
I feel so blessed that you were a guest on our show today. And I commend you for being on the forefront of the fight for urban education. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And I'm just going to do a quick outro. You can just wait right there. That's Dr. Kirnel Grishby. Definitely look her up, watch her YouTube videos. They are amazing. And you just feel like your best friend is talking to you. That's all. And you're learning so much about communication and just all the rest of it that she brought up today on the show. So again, thank you, Dr. Grishby. And if you know anyone in your community who is doing incredible, fantastic work like Dr. Grishby is, then please feel free to reach out to us at americanspcc.org. We want to hear about it. We would love to interview them. And remember, visit our website at americanspcc.org. Year to date, we have over 600,000 visitors to our site. And it's because this is an amazing organization, an incredible organization with very powerful, passionate people behind the scenes doing incredible work to bring insights, to bring cutting edge information to the public. So again, visit americanspcc.org. And remember, a brighter future starts here.